Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you from that table in the park. You know the table, the table in the park, the one in the park with the guy. He's the guy. There's a guy. He's sitting at the table and he's asking people to change his mind about things. The guy in the park. Anyway, I'm your host Conor O'Brien, and joining me as always is my co-host Martin O'Dwyer.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Oh, that one's a doozy this week. I was like, what table in the park? What? Just, oh my god, it's the meme. So good job. You took me on a journey there, so good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what we're going for. I wanted to kind of lead you down the rabbit hole a little bit, like the table. You know, the table in the park, the one in the park with the guy table in the park. I was going to do a different one where I was like coming to you from a slightly different location because I'm in a different room of the house today. Yeah. But I remember the guy in the meme being like, whatever, blank on blank, change my mind, and it felt appropriate.
Yeah, I must say that it is hell of an upgrade to the background having Sorcerer from the King Killer Chronicles hanging behind you, along with like all of your D&D books and Molly Tea Leaf.
Yeah, definitely more suitable. I'm currently remodeling my office, as I told you a little while ago, and hopefully it won't. Honestly, I'm thinking about it now. I set up the desk in here, and then I put up my monitor, and I kind of got the framing right to include all the bits behind me, and then I thought, next week I'm going to have a brand new office that will not look as nice in the background because there will not be a sword or any of my D&D books. And I'm like, this seems like a weird downgrade, despite the fact that I'm spending a lot of time doing it in my office.
Yeah. All I got here for now, until I move into my own place, is I have the Green Ranger Dragon Dagger. And yes, it does.
I mean, as far as
it does make the sounds. It does, because I am a massive child. But yeah, once I move into my own place, I do have I have Hadafang, I have Ice, and I have Andoril. That will all be somewhere in the background once I have my own place, along with a library.
Was it Hada or Halafang? Was it?
Hadafang, Arwen's sword, the sword of the House of Elrond.
Oh yeah, that's a really cool scimitar kind of style.
Yeah, it's almost like almost like an elvish katana almost. Actually, it's probably more like a scimitar. The curve is much more pronounced, actually, now that I think of it. Yeah. And you know what? All of them are wall hangers, but they are pointy as hell, so don't come to my house.
Oh, this one behind, like this one, honestly, Tara wouldn't let me put this up for a while because we have cats, and she was terrified that if like, for whatever reason, the mount gave out, you know, so...
Then you had cats.
Then it would be had past tense, yeah. Let's not think about that. My babies.
All three of them. Yeah.
Stop. I have two cats and one stray that my fiance feeds every now and again.
You have three cats. Just admit it. You have three cats, Connor.
I have two cats.
You're like a man having a heroin problem, except it's just a cat you don't like.
I have two cats and a stepson.
Oh god. Shots fired.
I like the third cat, but it's just like,
you'd like it more if he wasn't in your house.
You know what? He's very aggressive when he's outside. Not to us. He's pretty calm when he's indoors. But like I'll often look out the back, and he'll be like up on one of the shed roofs on one of our neighbors' gardens or whatever. And help me, if he comes across another cat, he goes from this little fuzzball, who's actually quite nice and really likes pets and stuff like that, to being like a bloody weapon. He is terrifying. He, like, the noises that come out of him, and like I once watched him corner a cat in the garden, and he was just doing that there kind of thing really, really loud, so loud that I could hear him inside and have to go out and try and break it up. And when I went out, he turned around to look at me, and the other cat thought, oh, this is my chance to get away. And the other cat took like 3 steps, and he turned back around, and he saw that he had moved, and he went, as in, don't you fucking go anywhere.
See, this is why dogs are always supreme.
I don't know, man. Cats are... Do you ever see like cats when they proper like fight, even dogs and stuff like that? They're so fast and vicious.
Okay.
They're kind of
terrifying. I would put literally every penny I own on any husky versus any cat.
Yeah, well, okay, fair enough.
And I picked husky because it's a medium. I could put that.
What if it was a tiger? Tigers are cats.
Fair enough. Equivalent, a pack of wolves. No, I just prefer dogs and all as well. Particularly after having 3 cats temporarily live in my house. Right, they smell like absolute shit. Oh my god.
Well, here cats can be very smelly if you don't like take care of them properly. Like if you clean their litters regularly. Cats themselves not smelly. Cats litter very smelly. So if you don't clean it out regularly, yeah, there is definitely
every single house where I spent any length of time that there's been a cat there, I've been like, that cat smells like shit.
Including mine.
Oh, actually, no. Fair point. You're the only exception.
If you take care of them, no smell.
Or you could have a dog.
Oh, dogs are a lot more work. This is not the purpose of this podcast.
Hot take: dogs are better than cats, and always will be.
It's actually funny you mentioned that, Martin, because that's exactly what our topic is today. We're talking about D&D hot takes.
Ooh.
So I was scrolling Twitter, as I want to do, and I came across someone who had posted a request saying, "Give us your hottest D&D hot takes. We'll start XP base leveling sucks." Was the initial tweet I saw here.
I would hard agree.
Here's the thing, right? We talked about this a second ago. So I'm on my phone here. This person made this one. A lot of people responded very passionately that they do not like milestone leveling in the slightest. There was one guy. Let me see if I can find this here. Yeah. So this guy appears to have his own D&D based Twitter account. Milestone leveling is a cop-out that relieves the DM of having to calculate experience earned at the expense of player agency. Instead of earning their growth, they have to wait for the DM to pass levels out like party favors or door prizes. What do you think of that, Martin?
Sorry. So are you saying when you don't when you do XP leveling and they get a level, you don't pass a level out like it's a party favor?
I mean that's kind of my, like, don't get me wrong, I think like if you want to play XP or you want to play milestone, I think whichever way suits you best is perfectly fine by me.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer milestoning, but this guy seems to very adamantly hate milestone leveling, because one, it takes away player agency.
No, it doesn't.
And I talked about this to Tara last night. I brought this up with her, and she said that she preferred XP leveling personally when we played in the campaign, but she is also a person who really enjoys like games like Final Fantasy and the grind that comes with, you know, killing mobs so you can eventually go and face down whatever big monsters on the head. So I can understand that perspective. And I think it falls down to whether you're like
I man, I love those. I love the Souls games, which is literally just grind,
Yeah.
die, lose all your progress, grind. Get back those souls you died, grind. Cool, a new boss, dead, grind. Like
yeah.
But I see. I think if you do milestoning properly, and in terms of like. So the thing with milestoning is it's more of like a narrative progression rather than like a level or XP progression, because you can go like, okay, this is the story I'm telling in this area. You need an intro, you need a start to the story, something that's going to get them into the thing, and then you have loads of small fights along the way to like the big fights, and then you have the big ending fight. That's how I see it. That's why I run all my games. You have like an intro, a few sessions, then you have sessions where they begin to pick up what's going on, then you have sessions where. Then you have a couple of sessions where it'll be, okay, we're in the thick of things here and we're discovering what's going on, and then you have the climax of everything where everything is revealed and things come to a conclusion. And I think if you do that properly, and if you do that setup properly, and you create challenge encounters regularly and of an appropriate level, that even if you're not going, well, this plus this is this, carry the one, multiply by this, you can still you're probably still going to cover over most of what they would have gotten in a level with XP, because you're continually raising the challenge as they level.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing that actually kind of about this that I particularly disagree with, is that he says it's a cop out for DMs to not have to calculate experience earned. There's not a lot of calculation there. You add up all the XP, you divide it by the number of people, boom, done.
Also, the device he's using to type that on can calculate it for you.
I was going to say with D&D Beyond now as well, like this, so even just a calculator on your phone. I mean, like,
and also,
I feel like the idea of it being a cop out so you don't have to, so you can avoid doing maths, I feel is a really weak argument.
But like, also, do you know? I know we said we have a whole episode on CR not making sense, but CR is still a good guideline. And I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, do you know, I've 4 level 11 players, so like according to the DMG, a proper like a regular challenge for them would be a CR 11 creature. Yeah. So. Yeah, now that's not necessarily accurate to my party, so I'm probably going to bump it up to like CR 12 or 13, to give him a bit of a challenge if it's just one monster in particular. But like, if you do that, like, we are matching you're upping the challenge level as they go. So like, naturally, even if you're not paying attention to the XP and not using it, technically speaking, you're probably covering over what you would in an XP grind.
I want to say it was Davy Chappie did a video on this where he basically said that like I think you actually might have shared it to me.
Probably.
He basically said that like
Oh,
what
is it
was
the
it like
power in D&D doesn't exist?
that's it. Power in D&D doesn't exist
That's a
because no
great
matter
video.
what level you are, your DM is going to base the encounters you come across based on the level you are. So if you're a fifth level party, your DM will create adequate fifth level encounters. Likewise, if you're 15th level, your DM is going to create adequate 15th level encounters. So the idea that like yeah, you're always going to be hitting a certain mark, and your DM will know. And we're not getting into like the whole CR thing,
Yeah.
but CR is a good guideline. It takes some tweaking with your own instinct on the side, but you're always going to end up doing that. So, like my kind of issue here is with this is like, and with kind of XP leveling is that I noticed by the time we were hitting like level 8 or 9, which is where we changed over in our previous campaign, we
Mm.
were doing XP, and we changed around level 8 or 9 to milestoning. And the thing I noticed about that is that it was becoming increasingly harder and taking much longer to level you guys up. I wanted you to get to higher levels so you can unlock new stuff. I find that XP goes very slow because unless you're doing the standard adventuring day of 3 encounters a day, all of the recommended level that's in the DMG,
Mm.
you're not going to be leveling that fast. And as well as that, the higher in levels you get, there's fewer high level monsters that would actually give you adequate XP in a fight. You're going to run out of monsters really fast in the higher end game. It's probably, if people play XP a lot, it's probably why a lot of high end games
End of
don't
10.
exist. Most I think, campaigns make it to about the 12th level
I
mark
think
with the
10.
early.
I think 10 is the average that campaigns end
Oh,
up.
it's a 10?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like if you're yeah, I feel like if you're doing XP when you're like a level 17 party, there's few enough things out there. I mean, as well as that, like, how do you justify putting a party up against something insanely
Yeah.
strong, which is maybe adequately leveled for them, but it's insanely strong? How do you justify, like, I don't know, if they're going down the road on the way to the mountain,
It doesn't make
and you're
sense for
like,
the game.
I need a random encounter. Well, I can't put them up against 10 hobgoblins or 40 hobgoblins, which would
Yeah.
be probably an adequate fight. I need to do something different. I can't. I could say there's a Baylor that just comes out from behind the trees, but why is there a Baylor in the forest just moping around? You know?
Yeah. I think it ties into a lot of people. I'm not. I'm probably I haven't experienced enough it myself to give a proper valid opinion on it really, but rather than just my feeling. But a lot of people I've seen online say that they feel that D&D doesn't scale particularly well into late game, with certain classes outpacing others, like what you were saying about challenge and monsters and stuff. And yeah, I can see that as well. And like again, I'm only in mid tier D&D still as my first campaign as a dungeon master, but like right, my character's level 11, right? So for an example, they had a boss fight the previous night, and a part of that boss fight, it wasn't the only thing they fought, but I put the Shardlin Dragon in there. That's CR 11. Now, if I were to go by the standard adventuring day, which you were saying, like three encounters per day.
It's something like that, I think. Yeah.
So by that logic, I would need 3 CR 11 encounters every day for my party.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I can see maybe doing that, but like there's going to become a point where either you're pulling these ridiculous monsters out of like you're saying, if they're just walking down the road going from like a small town to another small town to just like I don't know, visit family or get some visit, like you're going to have to start doing some crazy narrative gymnastics to be like, and the like we're saying, and the Baylor rises out of the hay barn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
I need an encounter that they can face before they get to the trolls in the cave because they took the job to go fight the trolls.
Exactly.
Great. I need a suitable challenge if I'm going to stick to these adventuring day options. And like I just think when you hit like late game, it's going to be very challenging to create enough encounters and encounters of like that make sense.
Yeah.
Encounters that actually make sense in the world. Like if you just drop a Baylor into a random side of the road fight in the same way you would bandits when you're at level 2.
Yes.
Then I feel like that's very
like you're either gonna have to
I
do
don't know.
that, or or just gonna have to pull some stunt where you send you pull your players through the dimensional rift into a much more inhospitable plane of existence.
Yeah.
And then the next while is okay, yeah, we gotta fight our way out of this hell dimension to get back home. Like that, to be honest, that does kind of sound cool.
That sounds really good.
But if you are forced to do that by the XP system, I think that would be a sick narrative way to. You could do some really cool milestoning with that.
I just personally, I think it kind of falls down to how people perceive D&D or what D&D is and what it gives them. If you're maybe someone who sees D&D as a game that facilitates you living out a story, then I think you'll probably prefer milestoning. Conversely, if you're someone who sees D&D as a story that facilitates you playing a game, you might prefer the XP grind because you like the gameplay aspect instead of the story. In my opinion, I think that's the way it falls. One other thing about this guy's comment as well. He says that it takes away player agency. Now, I read this guy commented on literally every other person's comment in this thread. He really passionately feels this way. But
cut down on the salt, my friend.
What I noticed is one thing he said, and I kind of see where he's coming from. He likes that if they know there's a dragon at the top of the mountain, but they're only like 3rd level, he likes that they can go, right, I want to go, let's go and take some other small side quests and kill some trolls and kill some hobgoblins and whatever, and level ourselves up a couple levels, and then we can go and face the dragon. He likes the agency of being able to decide how much you can like train on the side and do other side quests to enable you to do that higher thing. And I get where you're coming from. Again, Tara, for example, really, really likes Final Fantasy. That's a big part of those games, is grinding to then fight the boss. But I wouldn't say that it takes away agency from the players. I would say that players have just as much agency, just in a different capacity. Because rather than picking how much you're going to grind before fighting the boss, you could pick what, are you going to fight? You can pick other missions or other goals to accomplish. And like I said, I think leveling like that in that sense doesn't work because, as we already said, D&D power doesn't exist in D&D because your combats are always going to be scaled to this certain amount. I think in most D&D games, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm incorrect. I think in like some scenarios, I've had cases where I'm like, I have this mission planned. I send you guys on this mission, but maybe you get distracted and go and do this other thing, and you come back and you're a level higher when you come back. I will scale it up a little bit to match the level you're currently on.
Totally.
So if this person's talking about having the agency of being able to go and level, I'm not going to. I personally,
it's a false equivalence, I think. Because like again, like you have the agency to go and level, but like regardless, like. You're not gonna go if you're gonna go and fight the dragon now. Yeah, it's probably gonna be deadly, but like you're not strong enough to fight the dragon, so you're gonna go and fight things to get stronger, right? But like even if you level to the point, like you're gonna level to the point where that fight will be doable, your dungeon master will still balance that to be like a hard or deadly fight for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think
that's a better way of saying it. Probably like at level 3 the fight is going to be deadly. At level 5 the fight is going to be deadly.
Yeah, exactly. Regardless of how you level, again, and maybe this is because I run the game from a very story-driven perspective. I think that I'm not trying to make an encounter and saying, right, if you want to like run away for a while and do all these other quests and then come back, you're now going to be a higher level than this encounter, so the dragon should be easy. I get the agency of that, and I do understand where this person's coming from. However, from the way I run the game, I'm not trying to create a game where you can hack the system by grinding on mobs for a while and then overcome the encounter that way. I want you guys, I'm creating a game where things are narratively tense and action-packed, and if you come back 2 levels higher than you're meant to be and whoop the dragon in 2 rounds, well, I'm like, that's not very exciting, and I want this to be a cool story moment when you defeat the dragon. If all the dwarves went into the Lonely Mountain and stabbed Smaug because they were all 20th level and he was just dead instantly, that wouldn't have been a very good book.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I had a point there that just entirely escaped me as soon as I opened my mouth. God damn it. Yeah. Sorry.
Do you have any other hot takes? This is just one. I have a few in this thread and another thread open as well. So let me know.
Yeah, sure. So so do you know that meme on Twitter where it's like it'll be like 4 or 5 pictures of an actor, and they're usually like someone we all like Seth Rogen or someone, and it'll be like he always understands the assignment or whatever. Yeah. In this case, I did not, I think, correctly understand the assignment. So I came up with a page of my own Dnd Hot Takes. But one I really like and I think makes sense, right? And I think you're gonna hate.
Okay, go on, hit me.
Counterspell is an irritating spell at times, but it makes sense for it to exist.
Oh, I completely agree. I actually don't 100% agree with that. No, I was only watching a video about this on, I think XP Level 3 has a video where he says Counterspell is bullshit. And I get, okay, here's the thing. his argument is that the counter spell is
can
basically
be.
the you don't. Yeah, exactly. He calls it the you don't get a turn spell, and I get it. I do. I understand
There's loads
that,
of you don't
but
get a turn spells. The whole person is you don't get a turn.
Disintegrate is a you don't get any turns spell.
No, you do. You get.
Power word kill is a fuck you spell. You don't write up a new character.
To be fair, disintegrate does give you one turn. You turn from flesh to dust.
Exactly. No, but I feel like I think counterspell is a perfectly legitimate spell. I think is it frustrating when you're hit with it, like if both as DM and player? Oh yeah,
it's intended to be.
Like, absolutely, yeah. I think it is. I think I honestly I wish there was more reactionary.
I love
spells.
a reactionary spell, and that's why I particularly like Ancestral Guardian so much, because you have so much with your reaction that you can do, and like you could like not to be like meddling in everyone else's affairs, but like it's that reactiveness of like you can adapt to a situation. I love that in D&D.
It's a support thing, like as well. It's being able to block damage or reduce damage, like
but even not specifically. But even not specifically Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, but like just those kind of like you do a thing. Oh, I have the. It's such a like. I nearly said like such like almost like an anime moment where it's like, oh, I have this sword that can cut through anything. It's like, oh, well, I have the shield that can block everything. You know.
I was gonna say it's basically Yu-Gi-Oh! When you're like, you've activated my trap
that's exactly it. Sorry, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. It's kind of like I feel like I wish there was more reactionary stuff, because like I said, being like I feel like
it's more player agency is what it is. That's what it is. It gives you more player agency.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Like I love if someone's playing a Goliath, getting hit with an attack and going Stone's Endurance. I block a D10 plus whatever of this attack,
and then I have it.
And then I have it because I'm a barbarian. Or like you're able to reduce damage taken by allies and yourself with a reaction. Is that it's like 2d6 production?
2d6 now, 3d6 at 10, and 4d6 at 14.
Like. And that's a reaction you can use every single turn, but I mean, like that makes a difference.
Oh yeah,
you know.
But it also has a cost, because then I can't do
as the DM?
Opportunity attacks.
Yeah,
but like there's a cost. I can't do opportunity attacks then.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a cost with counterspell as well.
Yeah.
Because when you cast counterspell, you're burning a third level slot, which is one less fireball.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be blocking a fireball.
Yeah. I think it's very like if you look at it, it's always it's like level 3. Fireball and counterspell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder was that a conscious choice?
I wonder, was it like fireball? Cool. Shit, we need something to do with fireball. Counterspell.
No, I think counterspell is perfectly legitimate. It is frustrating if you are a player and you go, I'm gonna cast this, and then the DM goes, this bad guy counterspells. Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah. But plenty of things in D&D are, but likewise, it works both ways. We've seen counterspells be counterspelled, sometimes the DM will be like, "This guy's going to use his 8th level spell," and the player's like, "Counterspell."
Yeah.
And then you're like, you have to roll for it, and then they roll for it and they get it, and you're like, "Oh, he just wasted his 8th level slot. That sucks."
I think the height of the ridiculousness of counterspell that I was in, this is in a good way. It was in Critical Role, and Ford had learned counterspell. So like the bad guy casts a spell, Caleb casts counterspell. The bad guy counterspells Caleb's counterspell, so Ford counterspells the bad guy's counterspell.
Yeah. I actually love that. I really enjoy counterspell.
That's like Magic the Gathering levels of like the stack form.
Yeah. No, genuinely, I think counterspell's a great spell. It can be frustrating. It is kind of the you don't get a turn spell. But you still have movement.
Yeah, and that's probably only your action as well. But there's spells or bonus actions too.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, if you look at it that way, you just burn someone a 3rd level spell slot and a reaction from someone.
From the bat. It's like legendary resistances.
Exactly.
Like the good way to look at legendary resistances is when they use it on one of your spells or something. Guess what? That's one less they have for today. So you're gradually grinding that stuff down.
I always take that as well as a sign of, they're worried about that ability. I should do that again.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think counterspell, perfectly legitimate spell. In fact, I wish there was more. I wish it was like a redirect spell.
Oh, like a reflect.
Like reflect, maybe, yeah. Well, like it could be like counterspell, but maybe it's like 5th or 6th level or something. So it does a counterspell, but it actually reflects it back at them. And we'll say if it was a case that
mirror spell.
Mirror spell would be great. Yeah, exactly. So like someone fires a chromatic orb at you and they roll to attack and they get a 19, and then you go, I cast mirror spell, and you reflect it back at them.
do a
or
spell.
potentially at another target.
You could do
But
it
then,
like you could do it like counterspell, where you do a spell casting check, and if you roll above what they roll, you reflect the spell back at them.
that could work as well. Yeah. I was thinking along the lines of you would use their attack roll. So based on how good their attack roll is, your redirected attack
Oh.
hits at the same level.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool. I'm gonna write that spell. I'm gonna write mirror spell. Mirror
Spell, yeah.
spell.
Like,
I'm gonna write that
elements
spell.
kind of works like that, though, I suppose.
Which is?
Absorb elements kind of works like that, I suppose.
Yeah, a little bit. It makes you resistant, and then
Also, I really love that
melee
spell.
attack you make.
I really love that spell.
Absorb elements is also great. If you're a wizard and you get hit with a fireball, and even if you like succeed your dex check, which you may not, because wizards may not necessarily have high dex, you can then go, I burn a first level slot, which you have a fair amount of uses of, and can get them back using your arcane recovery on a short rest. You can go, I burn this, you immediately take a quarter damage because you half the half, or if you fail, you take half, but whatever. That can be really clutch in some moments, like,
Totally.
I think reactionary spells, shield, I adore shield. I adore shield, like, it might be one of my favorite spells in the game.
You wizards, sorcerers, and warlocks fucking everywhere.
I honestly think shield is one of the best spells in the game. I was playing an Eldritch Knight recently, and I wanted to do this reveal moment because everyone thought I was just playing a plain old fighter, and I didn't tell anyone I was playing Eldritch Knight. And I wanted to reveal that I was a magic user, because in this campaign there was a big thing about magic users being kind of illegal and stuff like that. And I wanted to do this thing where, like, a giant brings his axe down on top of me, and the DM is like, "That's a 19 to hit," and I go, "Okay," and I just look at my character sheet. And as the axe is coming down, I go shield, and my guy just puts a hand up, and this dome appears around me, and the axe just goes dung and stops and bounces off. And I had that little cinematic in my head. Never have to play it out, but I think shield is so badass, and so, because again, any spell where someone's like, I do this, and then you get to quickly go, I'm going to use this ability to counter it. I think it's so cinematic and so action packed and so awesome.
Yeah, and again, it's giving you more options as a player, and I think that's what I like the most. Is like, I love having lots of options. Of, like, I can do this, and like, not all of them are going to be super powerful, and I'm not going to use all of them at the same time. But I like having, like, you can do combinations, and that's the most fun thing in D&D, is just making all these crazy things happen with combinations of your spells and abilities. I have one that I think, I've one that I think is. I think you'll agree with it, but I think it's an uncommon one, and I think bows should be a finesse weapon.
Yeah, we talked about this before, I think, about how bows are a ranged weapon, therefore the ranged weapon is only dex, but it actually takes a lot of strength to operate things, especially a longbow in particular.
Tell me how you would dexterously pull a war bow there, kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I could understand maybe not short bows, because they're kind of not as powerful.
But even still, you draw a bow with your back muscles.
You do, yeah. It's all like in the shoulder here is where it all comes from. Like, so I think, yeah, I do you know what? Actually, there is
But like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be dex weapons, because I completely understand the logic behind it. I'm just saying finesse would make more sense.
It's either in,
or you just make
an
entire class of bows called war bows, and you have to use strength to pull them, and you need at least 13 strength.
Martin, you don't even realize that you're actually quoting something that I think is already published.
I'm a genius, because I haven't read it.
It's either in Dragon Heist or in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. There is a group of like five or six criminals, I forget what they're called. One of them is a half orc. He's called something the Hunter, but he uses this extra large bow because he's like a 6 foot or 7 foot tall.
Oh, I think I know where I've heard this. It's they did an acquisition Zinc thing, and he was in it.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think he was hunting.
Maybe.
I think he was hunting Morgaine across rooftops.
Oh, do you know what? That could be a thing. Yeah, that could have been a thing. And he does 2d6 damage, and I think you can use either strength or dex for it. But you do need like a minimum strength score of like 13 to be able to use it. I really want to introduce that in our campaign as well.
Please.
I think that'd be really cool. But
like, I love a javelin, I do, but it would make sense to have a longbow.
Yeah. No, I think I do agree that you should probably be able to use both, because I feel like, yes, okay, dex to aim something, yeah, okay, dex makes sense. But to draw it, you need strength. Vice versa,
But
if you have
then
one but not the other, if you have high strength but no dex, I feel like then you could draw the bow, but you couldn't aim it for shit. But like so I feel like
it's not dexterity. Like I see. This is where I think why it should be finesse, right? Because to aim a bow, you need the strength to be able to hold the string back and hold the bow in place.
like that guy in Two Towers who couldn't hold the
Yes, the
couldn't
owl
hold the
fella
arrow,
who started the war.
who started the fight. Yeah.
If you don't have the strength, you can't aim for shit.
Yeah, true. Because you can't hold it for long enough to line up your shot as well. Yeah, I would agree. I would
But like,
say
if you can't hold that string steady, right? If you can't hold that string steady and lock it,
If
you're
your
going to be
hands are
going like
shaking.
this the entire
Yeah.
time, and you can't aim like that. That's what I say. Finesse weapons, man.
I can get on board with that. I
I'm
can
not
get on board
taking
with that.
anything from anybody. I'm saying we should share it more evenly. This is D&D socialism.
Socialism, baby. No, I can get on board with that. Again, I think maybe if I was designing it from a mechanical perspective in the game, I'd say short bows can be just. No, I could say, I could see finesse. I could see finesse working across all bows. Yeah.
Except for war bows, they should be strength only.
No, sorry, that's what I meant to say. That's
Yeah.
what I meant to say. I could see strength working across all types of bows, because that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I guess there's definitely like balance and mechanical reasons why they've done it maybe, but I still think it's a bit crazy that like at least introduce like war bows. Like if you want to be like a crazy like all I'm thinking is this Game of Thrones where they had the giant archers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he basically shot what was like an 8-foot long arrow.
He shot like
that was like 3 inches thick.
he shot like a ballista bolt out of a bow, yeah.
He shot a small tree into the sky and nailed a dude with it, and that
Yeah.
guy just fell down into Castle Black on the other side.
That was so sick. Like I'm not saying that size, but like yeah, like an English longbow is a strength weapon. Come on.
Yeah. No, I can totally get on board with that.
Yeah.
I can. I've one here. That's kind of a silly one, but I see where they're coming from.
I don't think mine are going to be as controversial as Twitter's necessarily.
Nothing is as controversial as Twitter.
This is true.
Sneak attack needs to be renamed something that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I kind of get, because it's not always a sneak thing, and that can be very confusing. I've known so many players to be confused by the multiple ways in which sneak attack would work. It should be called something like advantageous strike or something like that, because you're taking an advantageous position. That would maybe make more sense.
Why not just call it like a critical hit? Oh, because critical hits already exist, Martin. You're a fucking idiot. Jesus Christ.
What if we called it Dungeons and Dragons? Oh wait, no.
No. Yeah, I've seen arguments like this online before. Not yeah, I get it. Because sneak attack does kind of conjure the idea of like doing like sneaking up behind someone.
That's your hidden. Yeah.
But all you need is advantage.
All you need is advantage is the main thing, and you get that from sneaking.
Yeah.
But the main thing is you have advantages. I think something calling it like advantageous attack or advantageous strike.
Cheap
would
shot.
Be, cheap shot kind of fits a rogue pretty well, actually.
Cheap shot.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, right, the ways you get it is you have advantage on someone, so you're inherently going in on an unfair fight, or you have someone with you who is distracting them, so you can get a hit in when they aren't looking, which is literally a cheap shot.
I always think about that when it comes particularly to Swashbuckler, because they get an ability where as long as they're one-on-one, they can have advantage on someone. As long as they're one-on-one, they get sneak attack. Sorry, which again, they don't get advantage, but they do have this ability. And I always feel like they're not sneaking in any way. They're like maybe deflecting your sword and then going for like a low kidney shot or something like that. They're not. There's nothing sneaky about what they're doing. They're just skilled at what they're doing, but they still get sneak attack. Yeah, sneak attack's a weird name. Yeah, I get it.
I do kind of agree with that.
Powerful.
I do like the name sneak attack though. Sneak attack is fun, But yeah, I think
if you to say advantageous strike, it's a bit of a mouthful.
Cheap shot.
Yeah. Cheap shot's good. I like cheap shot. Let's see now.
Or sucker punch.
Like the hit film Sucker Punch.
No, that film's terrible.
That film is terrible.
Hot garbage.
I'm looking for another. I have one here. Again, Twitter again. Character alignment is outdated and overly restrictive system, and an overly restrictive system from being used as role-playing fluff. Wait, what?
I get that. I can see the point of that. I think See, I had a very similar opinion for a long. I actually pretty much held that opinion for a long time, and then I watched a really good video on alignment by Matt Cova, where he basically says this is
two videos on it.
I don't think I watched them both, but the one I watched was very good anyway, and he basically laid it out like the way he looks at alignment is order versus chaos. Does what you do inherently push ahead the goals and the progression of like order in the world, right? And lots of things do that, and like perfect example. So like my paladin was a lawful good paladin, but I took the view of that alignment in the way Matt Covell did, and like my paladin would fuck people up in horrible ways, but he was fucking up the right people in horrible ways. So he was pushing ahead the rule of order. So yeah, he's lawful good.
The best example he has in those two videos of that is that a lot of people might consider Batman to be like maybe a chaotic good character because he's a vigilante. He breaks the law. No one's given him the authority to dress up like a bat and beat up criminals in the street. He just does it of his own volition. Because of that, people might consider Batman to be chaotic, but that's if you're thinking about it in the very first person, how do I act on a day-to-day basis? Batman, on a grander scale, believes in law and order. He believes in people following the law, and he believes in justice. That's why he does what he does. It's more like, it's less of the means, more of the ends.
Exactly.
Not how you act day to day, but how do you envision the world ideally being in your brain?
I think that's really easy to see as well if you look at who his chief antagonist is. He's the Joker. The Joker is chaos incarnate, and he's designed to be the antithesis to Batman. So if you look at it that way, of course Batman is a force of order.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the Joker is, but yeah, because people build those 3x3 grids with the different characters from various fandoms,
and it causes war on the internet.
It really does. But if anyone was to put Batman in the chaotic, good place, I would strongly disagree.
I would sooner put Batman in lawful evil than I would put him in chaotic good.
Batman doesn't believe in like people going about their own day, and he certainly doesn't believe in the. I think to be chaotic good, you have to have a certain belief in people's ability to do right by one another, even when there's no greater system or I don't know, hierarchy above you commanding you to do so. Which
that
Batman certainly does not have, because his parents were murdered in front of him in an alleyway.
Yeah, it's the belief that like people are inherently good without any exterior motivation. They will do good.
Exactly, yeah, and that systems are the problem.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think Batman thinks that like very much so. If all orders and all systems, disappeared, people would go fucking ballistic. And
Batman believes in the right system. He believes he has the right system, and that is the system that like justice, truth, that kind of truth, justice in the American way. Even though that's Superman's thing.
That's his buddy's.
That's
his
Superman's
motto.
I love that. Do you ever see? Just speaking of Twitter stupidity, do you know who Dean Cain is? He's an actor.
No.
He played Superman on Lois and Clark back in the 90s.
Right. Okay.
Right. And
was he? He wasn't the one with who played Lois in that?
I have no idea.
In the 90s, was
Terry Hatcher. Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So he I think around the time of the US elections last year, he came on Twitter and was like, he shared like a screenshot of like a comic. He shared like a screenshot of like an old comic book, I think, or an old movie where Superman was like, truth, justice, and the American way. And he was like, I wouldn't be, Superman wouldn't be able to say that anymore these days. And then literally one of the writers of Superman for like the last 10 years like responded to him with a screenshot of the comic book that he wrote where Superman says truth, justice, and the American way in like 2012.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was just so stupid. Sorry, just because we're talking about like Twitter hot takes and people being dumb on Twitter, that came to mind with the Superman. And I'll always
I feel like that's a very inflammatory conversation that is maybe meant for a more politically charged podcast.
I'm just talking about comic books and people being dumb.
There was a thing. The guy who played Hercules in the television show.
Oh, Jesus Christ, not Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah,
he's crazy though. He's crazy. And like not even like, but he's a full on like QAnon truther fucking like he is. Which is really upsetting because I really liked the old Hercules show. I really liked that show, and I really liked the weird. Was it Starship Andromeda he did afterwards?
It was just called Andromeda.
Andromeda, yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked that show as well. So I'm like, it made me really upset when in the last 10 years he turned into a raving lunatic. Sorry, yeah, we should probably go back to D&D hot takes and not celebrities who've lost
Yes.
their goddamn
And
minds.
to round out on alignment,
Kevin Sorbo is chaotic stupid.
is that'll just be what I'm gonna pull these 10 seconds or these 5 seconds out of the podcast and make it a video unto itself, and it'll just be Martin going, Kevin Sorbo is stupid.
I said chaotic stupid, actually.
Chaotic stupid, my apologies. Yeah, I do think character alignment is a bit outdated in some ways.
Yeah.
There's certain instances in which I like it. For example, I like that certain weapons will not let you
Yes.
use them, because like, do you ever see, I can't think of any good examples,
Holy
but do you ever
Avenger.
see, like, sorry?
Holy Avenger, only
Well,
paladins.
yeah, exactly. It's a good sword made to be used by paladins. There's no way a chaotic evil person will be able to wield that. Likewise, if you're watching movies, how there's like an all-powerful object, a MacGuffin of some kind.
Mjolnir.
And, well, no, I'm thinking more like a bad thing that maybe
okay,
the bad
yeah.
guy is chasing,
Yeah.
and wants to use for their own like greed and stuff like that. And then maybe at some point in the movie, you think, why doesn't the good guy just use it against the bad guy?
The One Ring.
It's the One Ring, yes, exactly. Well, yes, exactly. Like, why don't we just use the evil thing to defeat the evil? Because it's an evil thing. It is inherently an evil object. It doesn't work that way.
Even if you try and do good with an evil thing, it will inherently corrupt your good plans and turn them to evil.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
the argument
So
for not using the ring.
Exactly. That's why Bormer didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think alignment has some positions I still use it in. I would definitely put alignment requirements on certain magic items.
Oh yeah, I've a weapon, my Bloodhunter sword right now. It requires alignment by a lawful creature.
There you go. That's perfect. Yeah.
So that's
And
good,
like,
that's good or evil.
Exactly. And I think that that's a perfectly reasonable way to keep alignment around. But I do feel like some people think that simply naming your character or giving them an alignment is a personality.
No.
When really your bonds, flaws, and traits, that section of your character sheet is far more beneficial to shaping who you are as a person in the game than just saying, I'm a chaotic evil paladin, or I'm a chaotic neutral ranger, or whatever you are. Like, yeah, I think it's way more informative than simply giving yourself one of these 9 options and pretending like that's a personality.
Yeah.
It's not. There's more nuance to it.
100%.
Do you have any other ones from your list there, Martin?
Boom. Let me see here. I actually had something similar to that. Lawful good doesn't mean your character is boring or has to stop the other players doing things your character would disagree with, which is basically what we were talking about there.
I'm a really big fan of Captain America, and he is lawful good, and I really enjoy him.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, realism does not make your game better.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. So much. Oh, okay. Do you know why I'm reacting so much to this? I spend a lot of time on. I used to. I don't as much anymore on the Unearthed Arcana subreddit. People will make a lot of stuff or introduce game rules and homebrew stuff there, and it's a great resource, by the way. It's not always balanced and stuff, and you might need to tweak it yourself. But people have some great ideas on that.
Oh yeah, there's some really good stuff there.
Oftentimes, people they're really like overly. It's a game at the end of the day, right? And I think we need to make certain allowances to the game that are not like, okay. So I remember in like the first campaign we were running, I tried to introduce firearms. I had things where you needed to have X amount of bullets and gunpowder and all this other stuff, and there was way too much tracking of it. And when instead I should have just gone, you have 5 bangs from your gun, and that's it. It shouldn't have been any more complicated. I would have said bullets, but it shouldn't have been any more complicated than you have X amount of shots. But because of the rules where you need to have gunpowder for your gun if it's a flintlock thing, and then you need lead balls to put into it, and you need to like force them down. I just felt like it was way, and I see this a lot with guns in particular, because a lot of people have tried to bring firearms into D&D in their own way. I see people adding modifications like suppressors and scopes and all. It's stop it. It's too complicated. I don't want. Give me a rifle that functions like any other weapon in the game. I don't go to DMs and go, hey, I've got this bow. Can I add a red dot sight to it? No, you can't, because it's D&D. Because it's a game and the bow just stop trying to reinvent the mechanics. It works as it is. So likewise, if you bring in a gun to the game, don't be asking, can I get a suppressor for my gun, or can I put a scope on it, or this other stock? That's not how, like, it's overly complicated, and I hate that people try to do this overly realistic thing with guns just because they are more modern. They should be more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, rant
No,
over.
you're grand. That was a very good and informative rant about guns. No, I suppose what I was more mean is, so like I'm like, if you want to run like a survivalist D&D campaign where everybody's got to eat and drink and find their own food and
Yeah,
water and stuff like that, and you're tracking all that, and they have like, if you want to go whole hog at it, like you have to make sure that everybody is warm enough every night, and that you always have a fire going, and you where are you getting your kindling from, and like all, and like how much rations can you carry with your strength and all this kind of stuff. Like, look, if you want to track that and you want to do that and your players are interested in that, I'm sure you're going to have a great time. That's not for me though, and that doesn't make your game better than my game inherently.
no, realism does not equal better game. If it's the game you and your players want to play, knock yourselves out.
Yeah,
But realism doesn't make a game. There's plenty of games, video games, where they might seem realistic.
that's where this has come from. I think is like your like your Minecrafts, your Daisy, your much to a much further extent, like stuff like your Daisies, like your Valheims,
Yeah.
where you like Valheim isn't as bad, I don't think, but like, or like even like Don't Starve. Don't Starve is one I remember. It's like you have like a cold meter as well. Like all those survival video games, I think that's where that's come from, and as well as people like, obviously there's people out there who probably do have that real world survivalist experience. They want to incorporate that in their game, and like I suppose like what I'm saying is like the best game you can run is the game that you and your players enjoy the most.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no one answer to what the best game is other than that.
10 out of 10, Mountain. Top points. I agree. I think I'm a person who actually likes survival games, but here's the thing, right? D&D, depending on what your preference is, for you it might be a game where it's about hunting monsters, or it might be a game where it's about just getting gold and going through dungeons, or it might be a very story-driven game, or whatever way you like to play the game. That's fine. And if you want to play a game that is like a very survivalist game where you go out into the wilderness and you need to make sure you stay warm each night and you need to make sure you have X amount of rations and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine if that's the focus of your game. However, and I notice from playing survival games on video games, like, if the game's goal is to survive, I will play that game and I will thoroughly enjoy it because I like survival games. I like gathering food and supplies and making sure that I have a fire going after dark and all the sort of stuff that comes with games like Daisy, and Minecraft, and what was that? What's that one with the dinosaurs called?
Oh, Ark.
Ark Survival Evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy the aspect of those. However, I find that if the game, but for example, if you're expecting a story-driven game, but the fact that you don't have enough supplies or that the cold is beating you down so much that you can't make it to the next story beat, that's a hindrance. So I like survival aspects in survival games, but if you gave me Ark Survival Evolved with a very intricate story, like I'm talking like cutscenes and characters and a very intricate stuff, and I think that might actually be what the next Ark is doing.
The Vin Diesel one.
Yeah. But I feel like if the mechanics of survival hinder my ability to follow the story, and I'm here for the story, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So likewise, if you want to travel to the next town in D&D because you want to find out what happened with that guy who unleashed the shadows inside the church or something like that, and then you're on your way to the next town, but you can't make it there because you either can't afford enough supplies or because it's so cold out you couldn't possibly survive a single night out there, that's like, or you're losing hit points or you're getting levels of exhaustion with each night because you're so freezing. That's not fun to me. I want to know what happened with the shadows and the other guy, you know?
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like I could see myself maybe running like an arc like that, or like a short bit of story like that, just to give my players a taste of that. But like I couldn't see myself running a whole campaign, and I suppose it was a bit clipped is the point in that, like, realism doesn't make you better. I mean, like, yeah, like if that works for you, great, but that doesn't mean that people who aren't tracking that stuff aren't as good a DM as you are.
There's a thing, and you will notice because you've started listening to this podcast recently, which is Play, Watch, Listen. Mike Bithell is a game director in that podcast, and he only a few episodes back, maybe only a few weeks ago, he had a thing where he was talking to people to the rest of the cast about how they mentioned something about realism or about, like, oh, do you know what it was? I think it was the way people reload in games. So if you have a magazine with 30 rounds and you fire 8 of them, but then you can reload and you go right back up to 30, but you don't have a magazine in your pocket with 22 rounds in it. People often online, and he says he sees this the whole time, people say they want that level of realism, but he's like, you don't.
No.
You definitely don't. Games, even the games that people would call realistic, still have certain mechanics in play because there's certain things that you would just find too tedious if you think you want them, you do not want that level of realism in a game. You actually, you want almost like, how would you put it? You want the illusion of realism, but you
Yes.
don't want actual realism.
Yes.
You know?
You want something to be realistic, not real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
My
And
favorite.
I think.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the word realistic inherently means it's like being real, but is not actually real. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. My favorite, like, completely unrealistic thing in video games that no one ever questions, or even everyone just accepts as a thing now, is have you ever heard the term the Capcom quote?
No.
It's
Oh wait, is it the thing in video games where people will take an item and just put it behind their back and it disappears?
I've seen it. Similar, yeah, pretty much. It's something I've seen mostly ascribed to the likes of your Devil May Cry's and your Resident Evils. Now, Resident Evil not as much because a whole part that is organizing your inventory, right? But like,
Yeah.
Devil May Cry, you start every Devil May Cry game with a huge two-handed sword. Whoever you're playing, you have like a two-handed sword that's probably like 5 foot tall, right? Over the course of the game, particularly if you're playing Dante on the main characters, you will acquire like Devil May Cry 5, right? Start with a two-handed sword. At one stage, you start with a two-handed sword, and a pair of flaming gauntlets, and you switch between them with the trigger buttons. Just when the sword is out, it's just there on your back. You switch to your gauntlets, the sword is gone, and you have two fiery gauntlets. Where'd the sword go?
Yeah, yeah. There's a thing they do the whole time in Metal Gear Solid where someone will be like, literally, you'll be in a cutscene and Snake will be talking to someone and they'll be like, "Here, before you go, take this." And he'll go, "What is it?" And he's like, "It's an RPG launcher." And he'll go, "Thanks." And he you don't see what his hand
He
up
just
close.
puts it behind.
But he just puts it behind at his lower back as if someone handed him a mobile phone and it's something really small like that. He'll go, "Thanks, I'll use this later." And he'll put it in his back pocket. And it's every single, like, literally they never talk about it, but it's in even the more realistic games that they've done recently still have that mechanic, and I love it.
It's just a convention of video. It's the same reason why in, like, if a car blows up in Hollywood, right, it's going to be a massive explosion with loads of fire and smoke. But when that all clears away, most of the cars are still going to be there. If something actually explodes, like they do it on Myth versus La, if something actually explodes and like with C4 or like plastic explosive or something, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, there is no wreckage. You may find some wreckage about a mile that way.
I have another one
Do
here.
you have another spicy one for us?
Not so spicy, but just interesting. This person, and it literally Lars, it's all. This is all he says. Death saving throws are dumb.
I
Disagree.
I think I can kind of see where he's coming from in that, like, I guess it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I think death saving, in my head anyway, death saving throws are basically a mechanical imitation of bleeding out.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think that it creates a sense of urgency in a fight when someone is on death saving throws. The cleric or someone's like, "We gotta stabilize them," or "We gotta get over and heal them quickly," and it's a way of like it's kind of a safety net to a degree.
It's
so
a tension mechanic
if you drop
as well.
to zero, sorry.
It's a tension mechanic as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a safe net just to stop like you from dropping to zero and be like, "Well, that's it. Create a new character."
And like, you still can be fucking outright killed as well if you just take enough damage.
I've done it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've done it. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that saving throws create an interesting sense of tension. Don't get me wrong. The idea that you can roll a natural 20 and just miraculously recover is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like the idea where, like, someone is bleeding out. We need to get to this person. The fighter's down. We need to get to him fast or he's going to die. I like that idea, and I like the tension it creates. And the time in our current game where I killed a PC and an NPC with a lightning bolt, and they were both unconscious, and then I put you and the other player left to sleep, and I'm like, "You're gonna be asleep for a while, for a minute. I'm just gonna have to roll death saves and see what happens." That was a great end to our session because we all stood up.
That was so tense.
And we were like rolling dice, and I'm like, "Okay, so if we follow the initiative order around, first it's the NPC, that's one failure, okay, and now it's the PC, ooh, that's a failure," and we just went around like that until one of them potentially rolled a 20 or rolled enough passes and failed, and they both ended up dying. But like, that created a great memory and a great moment of tension. Again, I will if this person is referring to the fact that you can roll a natural 20 and miraculously get back up, I totally agree. But other than that, I think that saving throws are cool.
To play devil's advocate for the natural 20, right? D&D is born from Pulp Fiction, from pop culture and Pulp Fiction, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you seen in a movie where someone gets absolutely demolished and they're on the ground and they look like they're dead, and then like they have the camera goes inside their brain and you see them having flashbacks, and then they hear like, oh, perfect example, because I literally just watched it the other day.
Are you Thor, the god of hammers?
Yes, yes, exactly that. But like, he's down, he's done, he's out, and then like that happens, and just the will to continue on, and like that awakening of like power and stuff. He comes back in that, like, that's how in my head always the natural 20 is like, you're not done. Now is not your time. You are not done here. Your will is too strong to pass on, even with the wounds you've taken. Like, you have one hit point.
Anime a lot.
Oh yeah,
Naruto
absolutely.
does it constantly.
Oh god, yeah.
Naruto's whole deal is that he's not even that good of a ninja. He can just take a punch like a boss.
he's pretty good ninja.
Well, no, yeah, he is. But I mean, like, his whole like his whole thing is that like he can get absolutely beat down.
Yeah.
But he will get back up and he will keep fighting because he's just so determined.
It's his ninja way. He'll never give up.
It's his ninja way,
which is cringe a bit, but it's, you know, and that does get overdone a lot in anime, to be honest. That like, I can't lose here. I have too much that I'm fighting for. But like, it's a trope in popular fiction for a reason, because that can it's Captain America at the end of Endgame when he's got his shield cut in half, his arm is bleeding, and Thanos has an army coming towards him, and he just pulls the strap tighter on his arm to close up the wound and walks on forward. The pain. He didn't know those portals were going to open. He was going to walk in and just die instantly, but he was going to fight while he was doing it, and that's what kind of the same kind of narrative I see for the Nat 20. And when you're on,
could have done that all day.
Oh god, man, Steve Rogers. what a God, an Avengers D&D game would be so much fun. It would be everyone's level 20 and everything is world ending all the time. It would be a nightmare for the DM. But
everyone's a scroll doppelganger.
That would be even more of a nightmare for the DM, because then everyone could change abilities.
You'd have to keep track of who is and isn't, and hit me with another one from your list, Martin.
Let me have a look here. I think this is possibly a point that I made earlier, but this is one I like and I feel very strongly about with D&D. D&D is a group story, not your story, so don't try and involve yourself in everything.
Wait, say that again?
D&D is a group story, not your story, so don't try and involve yourself in everything.
I don't know if it's a hot take, but I should hope it's not a hot take. That seems like that should be baseline rules for me.
Yeah, I know. I like some. This is why I said, like, I'm not sure I totally nailed these. Oh, how about this one? It's slightly more controversial, but I also feel pretty strong about it. And it's building powerful characters is fine. There's nothing wrong with building a powerful character, and it does not mean that you hate roleplay.
No, I think roleplay is or building it, like, I don't get me wrong. I think there's definitely some people who try to just break the game.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Like, I like building powerful combos into my characters because there's synergy there. It works that way for a reason. But like, my goal isn't to break the game. It's just to like, oh, this is a cool combo. Like,
yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with building. Like, I would be very hesitant to accuse someone of being a min-maxer just because their character is powerful.
And I don't necessarily think there's not anything wrong with being a min-maxer either.
No, I think as long as you're playing the game and you're having fun and no one at the table, like, everyone at the table is having a good time.
Exactly, as long as what you're doing isn't interfering with how other people are enjoying the game, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, yeah, like I've always been confused by why that's like a bad thing. Indeed, like, of course I want a strong character. Like, power doesn't really exist, but even with power not existing, it's still just fun to have combos that are like crazy. Like, I'm gonna cast this spell on this sword, and then like this whole, like, you can do this crazy, like, it is the anime, like, I'm gonna use this thing to, like, it's the chain of like combos that you can do is enjoyable. Like, yeah, I just don't think there's not necessarily, like, obviously if you're one man showing the thing and you're taking all the spotlight from everybody, then it becomes an issue. But I really don't think there's a problem with wanting to have or having a powerful character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that because again, the argument against that would suggest that your character should be suboptimal or should be like weak in some way, or like that you should be designing a character somehow not to the full extent, whereas I'm like, just design your character whatever way,
as best.
Because again, like again, like what are you if you're saying people shouldn't be doing that, what are you asking them to do? Are you asking a fighter to take the linguist feat instead of tough because that's the wrong thing to do somehow?
I think most
I
of the
don't
time
know.
this comes down to stats is when people are talking about it. When like they're like, oh, do you know, when like people are like, oh, you should by rights have like people are like, oh, you should by rights have a dumb stat. But like, what if I just rolled really well when I was rolling my
Yeah.
stats and I got like 3 16s and 2 14s at level 1?
Yeah.
And
I
like
I,
at another, sorry, 3 16s and 3 14s because there's 6 stats, not 5.
yeah, yeah. It happens.
Yeah, it does just happen. Like I like my Lug has very very high strength and con, but like he's terrible mental stats, awful mental stats. But like
Like to be fair, I think maybe if a player rolled in front of me and got like all above 15 on all their stats, I'd probably ask them to reroll because that would be a bit ridiculous. But only I do, don't get me wrong. I think like having a weak stat is not a requirement,
yeah,
but I do think
I
that it actually can, like, it can be a great role playing tool.
yeah, but you should.
Grog in Critical Role had no intelligence, and that was some of the funniest things that happened in Critical Role because Travis played on how
Okay.
dumb Grog was.
Yeah, but his intent wasn't to make a dumb character though. You know what I mean? It's more so the allocation of stats. Like he allocated his stats, and when he allocated his stats into what he wanted, it just so happened that intelligence was low. So he was like, okay, cool, I'm going to play Grog as dumb. You know, it's
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people, yeah, like I think it's just as long as you're not fucking like as long as everyone at the table is having a good time, I don't really see an issue with it. And if an issue does arrive, then just have like arise because of it. Just have a fucking adult conversation about it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I had a situation with Renyol when I was playing him where I rolled and I got a couple good stats. So my strength and my con and my int were quite high, which is what I need for an Eldritch Knight. Actually, my con was actually only modest actually. But then I got quite. I have a flat dex, and I had a 7 charisma.
Yeah.
And what I did was I hadn't planned this, but I 1 second. Can you hear that noise in the background?
No.
Okay,
Your
good,
mic
'cause
probably cuts most of it off.
that's really good because I can hear it now, and I was worried there for a second. Um, yeah. So what I was thinking was, oh yeah, so I wasn't planning on this, but I thought, right, okay, I have a flat dex. What does that mean? Okay, well, technically Renyolf is like 50 something. Maybe he has like a bad back, or he's not very flexible anymore. So I kind of leaned
Stiff
into that a
joints.
little bit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then as well as that, the 7 charisma. I hadn't planned on him being kind of socially awkward, but he kind of was, and I leaned into that because he had a 7 charisma. Having a weakness can be a good thing, and you can
Oh,
definitely
totally.
play off it super well. But I don't think that you're in any way in the wrong if you roll your character stats and you don't get anything below a 12. You've done nothing wrong there.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think as well, like yeah, like you can pad up your stats and stuff. But if you want to be really, really good at what your character is supposed to do, you're probably going to have dumb stats, and you're going to have stats that just aren't high because you've been channeling them into other things.
Yeah, exactly. I think. Yeah, I personally I don't think that there's a huge problem
Yeah.
with it. I think
It's just
like you said,
sorry.
yeah, so it's like you said, if all your players at the table are happy with how everyone's playing and all that stuff, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
All that
Totally.
matters.
Do you have any more
Uh,
spicy ones from the internet for us?
I got one here, it's from someone named Dr. Magic. Uh, this is the Sorcerer is the weakest mechanically designed class by a landslide, and only really works when this is used as part of a multi-class. But when you multi-class with it, it's amazing. They try to make it special / unique by making it the only class that can now use meta magics in this edition.
Jeez, I know I really like Sorcerer. I actually really, really like Sorcerer. Now, it doesn't have a lot of really good subclasses, I'll give them that. There's not like a ton of great like Sorcerer classes, and I believe the Wizard does outpace the Sorcerer as it gets to higher levels.
Yeah.
But like I've a Sorcerer in my party. The first game I played it had a Sorcerer in it. There's a Sorcerer in the party we're playing right now. I have never been in a game with a Sorcerer where I went, that's a bad class. I've only ever been like, this class is a damage machine.
That's kind of it. The
Yeah.
Sorcerer is basically I there's, if you compare it 1-to-1 with the Wizard, right? The Sorcerer has a whole thing where like they do get fewer spells. They also can't swap their spells out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But I think they get about the same amount of spells. They get the same spell slots as far as I know. So you can cast a limited number of spells the same amount of times. they also get meta magics, which are absolutely great.
And you can use your you get a similar thing to Arcane Recovery, where you can use your meta magic points to get back spell slots.
You can trade them out, exactly. Yeah. I think don't get me wrong. The one thing about sorcerers that definitely frustrates me is the inability to swap them out on only between levels.
I'd very much like it to be like, I wouldn't have a problem if they could swap their spells out once a day. Like, wizards can do it, and wizards arguably are more powerful, arguably have access to more powerful spells than sorcerers. Like,
they have a broader spell list. Yeah, I think they have everything the sorcerers have for the most part, plus a bunch more thrown in on top that are exclusively wizard.
You know, so like, what I do, and do you know what I do actually really like about meta magics is there's a couple of really, really interesting meta magics, like the likes of your twin spell, your subtle spell. I really like those. There's that one other meta magic where you can change the damage type of your spell, which is sick. Give me that acid fireball, please.
Yeah. Also, weakest mechanically designed class. Have you seen bards? Particularly mostly at low levels. I apologize to all the bards out there, but low level bards are quite ineffective in a lot of different ways. You know, they get better with higher levels, but they're very loaded heavy on the back end as opposed to the front. They don't get a lot going. Also, have you seen Beastmaster Ranger?
Ooh, they only patched they only patched that one up recently as well. Ooh.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot better now, though. To be fair.
And I mean, it's technically a subclass, but I take massive issue with the elemental monk as well.
Yes, the elemental monk is not great.
It's not good.
The way a long death monk isn't great either.
I think it's okay.
Didn't they take that out actually?
It's still a thing, but it it's well, no, I think it might be archived actually.
I think it is.
What it was, it was in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, and that book is now no longer what's it? Something League, Adventurers League official anymore.
Yeah.
So whereas before you could use that in Adventurers League, no questions asked. Now you cannot use the stuff. You can, I think, if people allow you to, but it's not a given.
And they didn't reprint Long Death. That was the only one out of all those they didn't reprint.
They didn't reprint.
Oh, also Purple Dragon. I was just about to say Purple Dragon Knight sucks ass as well.
Purple Dragon Knight has a couple things I think are kind of interesting about it,
and I think they're all done better in the Cavalier.
Do you know what? Yeah, not wrong. But yeah, I would say, look, I know people take a lot of issue with Sorcerer, particularly when you compare it 1-to-1 with Wizard. But I actually think Sorcerers are kind of cool.
Yeah, that's another one where I can see the point he's making and where it would come from.
Yeah.
But in my experience with Sorcerers, they have proven to be nothing but incredibly useful.
Yeah, like you said, we had Mike in the previous campaign. Yeah. Mike did a lot. Mike was a heavy damage dealer.
And utility as well, though. He was the one. He was flying us everywhere, teleporting us places, making us invisible, seeming like everything.
He was. Like it would have been interesting to maybe if someone else in the party had played a wizard alongside him and we could see 1-to-1 who outpaces who, but and maybe a wizard wouldn't. They'd probably have more flexibility. I've always thought that it didn't always make sense to me that sorcerers got meta magic, because it makes more sense to me in my head that a wizard. This is my hot take. It makes more sense to me that a wizard who studies spells and the exact conditions in which a spell happens would have enough of an understanding that they could tweak it on the back end to make it behave differently.
I think the way I've always rationalized it is that because a wizard's magic is learned. He learns specific, like a mathematical formula, basically. He learns to cast the spell, right? So you can't, like, I know there are certain wizards, but like basically that is the formula. You repeat the formula, you get this result, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
like they're stuck in a cycle
exactly.
where they've learned a very specific way of doing it, and they only do it that way.
Whereas a sorcerer, their magic comes from within, usually from a source, almost from like their DNA, like a mutant. And like I think as a result of that, it would make sense to me that you have this wellspring of magic, but then it comes out, you express it in a way that is unique to you, and that's where your meta magic comes in.
You're using your will to bend or manipulate something.
Wizard magic is learned. Sorcerer magic is like intuitive. Is the way I've looked at it.
Yeah, and I suppose the intuitive nature of it would allow you to
change
tweak
on the flow. Yeah. Like you're just going. It's like jazz with magic. You're just going with the flow. Whereas
oh my god,
that's what it is. It's jazz versus a heavy metal solo.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas jazz is very freeform and people can jump in and
Yeah.
out and stuff like that. A heavy metal solo is very much
These are the notes. Play these notes as fast as you can.
yeah, as fast as you can is
Yeah.
right too. Cool. Any more you over there?
Um, an edgy backstory does not make it a good character.
No. Stop it with the edginess.
Mm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
And also, an edgy
I feel
backstory
like
does not mean that you have to be an edgy character. You can have a dark backstory. Like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of really fucked up things happen to them over the course of their life, and they're actually really nice, good, kind people.
yeah, doesn't mean you have to be the sullen mute who barely talks. And here's the thing,
And
Wi-
that
if
actually
if
would
you
make
have
you
a very
a better character in my mind.
I think if you are a person who has written a very edgy backstory, and as a result you're always the brooding, quiet one who barely speaks in the group and stuff like that, I got news for you. That's not fun as a player to sit around and like not really be able to have an input on a conversation that a bunch of characters are having,
Yeah.
because you feel like your character should be sitting in the corner of the room, glaring out the window at the night. You know, like that's
The gutters are
it's-
full
it's-
with pus, and the gutters have scabbed over, and all the city screams, "Help me!" And I just listen, and I say, "No."
I feel like it's you can have an edgy backstory, whatever, like fine, but I think it more comes down to you should still not try not to play the edgiest character ever
Yeah.
at the table. Be more engaging, because again, like I know we all like when Batman is kind of quiet, or he says very little, or he's very snarky sometimes, and
Batman,
it's entertaining.
yeah.
But when people are trying to interact at a table where the purpose of the game is that you have fun with your friends, then if you're not engaging with your friends because you're just playing this quiet character, that's not really a whole lot of fun.
I would also contest this by the fact that Batman once painted him and Robin entirely yellow just to fuck with the Green Lantern.
Did he? I feel like I
Yes.
should have known that.
You literally Google it right now. Batman paints himself yellow. Like, it's an old school comic, but it's Batman and like the Green Lantern walks in, and Batman and Robin have painted themselves bright yellow because Green Lanterns don't like yellow.
Yeah.
Like, it's that, you know, like, and like any time, like, yeah, Batman is an edgy, broody character, but like, look at any instance of him in a team. Like,
He still interacts with the rest of the team a lot of time.
Justice League War is one of the best. I love that movie. It's the DC. It's a one of the DC animated ones. That's phenomenal. Batman is hilarious in that film.
Yeah. Is that the one where he steals Green Lantern's ring
Yes.
without even noticing?
Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh, Hal Jordan," and he's like, "How do you know my name is Hal Jordan?" He's like, "It's written on your flight suit."
Yeah. Oh, there's a bit where where he's like, "Oh, you're that Batman guy. So what? Can you like turn into a bat, or do you have like supersonic like voice or something like that?" He's like, "Nope." He's like, "Are you just a guy dressed up like a bat?" And he just turns around and smirks at him and walks away.
yeah, exactly. You know, like, and because Batman has those multiple sides to him, that makes him a good character. He isn't all just edge and brooding. I'm going.
Yeah.
Do you bleed?
I actually really liked Batfleck.
I like Batfleck. I wish he had a different script to work with.
Yeah.
Same with
I
Henry
actually.
Cavill. He's a great Superman. I wish he had someone else writing the Superman scripts.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. But like I think they actually got such good casting in the DCEU, and then they've just squandered it over the past few years. That's a whole other hot take in a different podcast.
I think that we've touched on that particular hot take in multiple podcasts, Connor.
This is the Micflayers, a D&D podcast / Connor just talks shit about Zack Snyder on a regular basis.
Yeah. I have another one. The class isn't boring. You lack imagination.
Yeah, it's someone that's actually a similar one here about fighters, and
I was specifically thinking of fighters. Yeah.
People who say human fighters are so bland and boring, don't know how to make real characters.
Thank
You
you.
don't need to be a fish man who got his magic powers from a flying immortal plate of spaghetti to be interesting. Oh God. You can do so with a spear and a shield. There you go, Martin. Justification. No, I think I've often said you played Lug in our first ever game we played in together as a human battlemaster fighter. And I still to this day think Lug, the current instance, but also that instance of Lug where he was just a fighter. Like currently he's an ancestral barbarian, so he has ghosts and stuff like that surround him, which you know it makes a bit more interesting for a character. Even when Lug was just a spear and shield wielding human fighter battle master, I still thought he was one of the most interesting characters I've ever seen at the table, and continues to be, because
Oh, thanks.
you spent an awful no worries. You spent an awful lot of time like adding the whole Celtic tattoos and heritage to him. You made it so that he had a whole thing about like magic and again the skepticism of dark magic. He had layers to him. He had real. He was honorable in what he did as well. You know, he had a lot of very genuine, real character traits. And this is in a party where we had a Dragonborn Paladin, a Fire Ganassi Sorcerer, a Tiefling Sorcerer,
With 3 elf rangers.
oh god, yeah, of which I was one. An Elf Ranger Rogue, an Elf Ranger Bard, and an Elf Ranger Cleric, I believe.
Yeah.
Is what is it. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so yeah, I think that honestly, no character I've ever seen in D&D has been interesting solely because of the race class combination they've picked.
Unless
get me
you're
wrong.
doing like a Mimi combo and like, oh, I'm an orc wizard, and I'm super buff. But like that's funny for a while, but the joke runs out.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean that will be funny for session 1 when you first reveal your character, and then it will not be funny any bit after that for the remainder of the campaign. You're much better off investing time in having a real genuine character with some real kind of like character aspects to them. Don't get me wrong, I always love when Mike tends to play the weirder of the races.
Yeah, he does.
Like,
Yeah.
He's played a Dragonborn and a Turtle, and he played.
He's playing a Tabaxi in my campaign.
Tabaxi. He played Kenny the Kenku in a one shot I ran once, which I really loved.
He played when Wabu died for that short time. He also played a Triton.
He did, yeah. He goes for the weirdest stuff, and I like that just because it adds to the diversity of the team. But again, there's really nothing wrong with playing a human anything.
No, not at all.
Because also, yeah, I just think, yeah, absolutely dead on. Play whatever you want. It like, just because I'm playing a human fighter and you're playing an Earth Ganassi war wizard.
Yeah.
You're not more interesting than me inherently, you know.
I think where a lot of this comes from is because, particularly with like a fighter, a lot of your stuff is I hit it with my weapon. I hit it with my weapon. I hit it with my weapon. Right? And people just don't seem to like that. Right, okay, easy solution. Your first attack, okay, I'm going to go for a low stab at his Achilles tendon. I'm going to try and sever the Achilles tendon. My second thing is going to be a sweep up across his eyes. I'm going to try and blind him. My third attack is going to be an overhead slash down onto his head.
Yeah, it's about, again, you describing it more cinematically in a more interesting way is far more interesting.
And now, like, don't overdo that. Don't be like, and as I draw my sword from the scabbard, it sings as the steel. No, just be like, just be clear about what you're doing, so people can see it rather than going, I hit him again. And you know what? A lot of time, you still probably are going to be like, I hit him again, because it's tense and you want to move through the combat. But like, yeah, like if you just put a little bit of imagination into it, and like just think of like your favorite action scenes from movies and why they work and how and like what you like about them, and try and stick that in your fighter, and you'll find it won't be as boring. You won't be boring, or you won't be like, oh, this is so shit. And like, okay, you're never going to be like, if you're standing next to like a 15th level wizard who's like, I'm going to disintegrate this dragon's head, you're probably never going to disintegrate a dragon's head. But if you get up to that dragon and you have your action surge and you have your weapon to hand, you may take off one of the dragon's heads just with a few sword swings.
I think like the thing is like, even if you're like, okay, if you're casting spells, yeah, maybe you're shooting green lasers, or you're shooting balls of fire, or you're shooting bolt of lightning. Yeah, that's kind of just inherently, at just a very base level, that's probably inherently a little more interesting to describe.
Yeah.
But I think that both you wielding a sword and slashing up an enemy in various pivots and swings and stuff like that can be just as interesting as the wizard describing themselves moving their hands and then throwing a ball of acid at someone. Exactly. You know. I think that both can be equally interesting. And again, just because your class is a warlock whose parents made a pact with a devil, and blah, blah, it doesn't, like, that's backstories, in my opinion, do very little to inform how interesting a character is. It's how you play at the table.
Yeah, exactly. It's and like what you take from that and move forward with it, I think is how we make things interesting. Like, yeah, it's your class. Your class is your base, not your whole character.
Here's something I was actually thinking about the other day. So this person actually, just back in the same thread as before, this person said, agreed, milestone leveling all the way.
Yeah. Suck it, other guy.
I wonder did he comment on this. I would put money on it that he comments. He did not, amazingly. But this person said Dark Vision isn't OP in 5e. Very few tables just actually use it correctly to how it is written as intended. So I think what they're seeing is a lot of people complain that almost every or most races have Dark Vision in 5th edition, which is true. I actually was thinking about this the other day. I don't actually adhere to Dark Vision rules as I should, because technically most of my characters should be rolling at disadvantage when they're in pitch black environments, because that's how it works. Total darkness is dim light when you have Dark Vision.
Yeah, I think it doesn't come up for us a lot though, because we have half our party can't see in the dark, so we always have light to hand.
That's true. Yeah, which I like. We never got to do it last campaign because we had
everyone had Dark Vision.
Everyone had dark. We had 3 elves, a dwarf, and then a dragonborn who had goggles of night. So everyone had Dark Vision. No one ever needs to worry about that, which is why in this campaign I gave you a spear that has the ability to glow and cast light, because I thought this will be good to have so that you actually have a source of light in the immediate area when you're fighting and stuff. But yeah, it's an honest mechanical. I don't think Dark Vision is OP. I think maybe too many races have it, but that comes down to a design thing of like a lot of races are based on animals and stuff, and a lot of animals can see in the dark.
And like I know I said earlier like realism, but sometimes like it's I suppose about like narrative or logical consistency within your own world, even if that world is unrealistic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hit me another one there. We're coming up on time, but hit me with another one there, Martin.
Oof. We've covered a lot of the ones I wrote, shockingly. If combat is your favorite part of D&D, it doesn't mean you hate RP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can have preference in what parts of the game are yours, 100%. And I think I would say almost everyone, if not everyone, does have a preference in what part of the game they like the most. Doesn't mean that you're somehow doing a disjustice or a disservice to the other pillars of the game. Let's pull up another thread here now.
Yeah, I love D&D Hot Takes because there is a lot of them. I'm just like, yeah, no, get fucked. But like, I find an awful lot of them. I'm like, yeah, do you know, at the very least you have a point, like, you know, which is rare on Twitter. Most of the time, Twitter doesn't have a point.
I have one here. Warlocks should have the option of being intelligence-based, and sorcerers should be constitution casters. Let's very quickly unpack that both ways. All right, so warlocks as intelligence casters. What do you think there?
I would like to know their rationale behind that.
I think maybe because, and not always, but I think maybe they feel that they've been handed something by someone, therefore they need to know how to wield it. I would guess, or maybe because oftentimes warlocks make pacts because they want magic, they want the knowledge of magic from their patron, and the knowledge is what's granted to them. So you could argue that maybe that's what they're going for.
Yeah, I guess if that's the rationale, yeah, because the whole thing of warlock is you have made a pact to gain forbidden knowledge. That's generally, that's like with most of your warlock, obviously like the divine soul isn't going to be forbidden knowledge. But I guess with that I could see the argument for that. I
think maybe
I guess is the argument for charisma for sorcerers being constitution casters then that their magic comes from within their body?
I would say that it's probably because they feel like it's a physical, rather than a wizard who has to very quickly think, how am I going to combine these elements to make a spell? The sorcerer maybe has to summon it from within their physical being. And like, you know, if you ever see like in pretty much anything, when someone uses magic, they'll cast a spell and then they kind of collapse to one knee because they're exhausted. Maybe it has to do with your physical, you're draining your own physical strength to make that. I can see that being a thing.
I can see, I understand it. I'm totally cool with that being charisma, because again, it's like it's that intuitive, like, feeling approach to magic.
It's a force of will, which is what charisma is. It's your
force personality is what charisma is, really. Your willpower, I'd say, would come from wisdom, no?
No, I wouldn't say. I'd say charisma and like your strength of character from charisma is what enables
Yeah,
you to
fair.
use your to force a spell out to become or to manifest something like that.
Yeah,
Again, I can see the argument for both these.
the
Although that being said, with the warlock intelligence one, I would argue that the idea is that because you had to be some level charismatic to
I think
negotiate a deal with this higher being,
yeah.
and that's why it's charisma. It's because every time you cast a
It's also
spell,
the strength of your word. It's the same as the paladin's oath. It's like
yeah,
your powers are based on the strength of your word, the strength of your character, your will.
yeah.
Um,
I think the idea is that like, your the charisma is I've made a deal. So every time I cast Eldritch Blast, I'm petitioning. I'm asking of
yes,
my patron to let me do this in the moment.
I think that's why they're
Therefore,
sorry. That's probably why they are charisma actually is because you are petitioning another being for power.
every single time you do something magical, you're asking, "Hey, can I use this?" Cool, and then you're doing the thing. But I think that's why every single moment you cast a spell as a warlock is a negotiation with your patron to say, "Hey, will you pass me that thing? Thank you very much," and then you Eldritch Blast someone off a cliff. um, let's see here now.
I'm afraid I think I've mostly ran out of mine. I think now.
I'm gonna end on one here, which is not a hot take, but I thought
Is there one?
someone
Is there one in that thread that's just absolutely batshit that we can just mock for like 5 minutes?
uh let's see here now.
I'm only joking, really, but like just anything interesting.
Oh, no. Bad take. Not even a hot take, just a bad take. Short rest should be 5 to 10 minutes. Long rest should be 30 minutes to an hour.
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, no.
That
If you wanted to play a slightly faster paced game, I guess maybe the 5 to 10 minute one. But the idea of a long rest is that you're sleeping for the night.
yeah, I
So
was just going to be like, okay, long rest for 30 minutes. How about I come over to your house half an hour after you've been asleep and wake you the fuck up? Would you feel rested?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. uh, let's see here now. Paladins can be any alignment as long as it matches your god. I would agree.
Yeah, and I think the oaths being based on specifically the oath you make rather than the god you serve allows a lot of that. Particularly if you look like there's a lot of room to be an evil paladin these days.
Yeah, you got Conquest, you got Vengeance, you got Oathbreaker. This is good. Don't run. It
Vengeance
would
is
be
not
hard
evil.
to. Sorry.
Vengeance is not evil. Specific tenets of vengeance fight the bigger evil.
What I'm saying is that. Well, yeah, that's actually one thing. That's kind of a thing actually. Is I feel like paladins are somewhat restricted by their oath. I feel like there should be maybe some customization options in the oath you take.
I
Like maybe
I
you have
like
three
it
options.
though.
Or...
I don't know. I kind of like I like having these are how you because these are how you should act for your paladin. Because then like if you're how do you be an oathbreaker paladin if you don't have things to break?
Well, no, I agree, but I like the idea that you have tenets, a set of rules you live by, and that very much feeds into the idea that you're an oath sworn individual.
Yeah.
My problem is just that I feel like sometimes they usually give you four tenets to pick from, or four tenets that you follow.
True, four.
I wish each of those four had pre-options, and you could chop and change them to customize oaths that you've sworn, and they could be like one of them might be like I would like to be a conquest paladin that's like, and you could do this, but again, conquest paladins are kind of bad because they have a whole thing where it's like
Douse the flame of hope.
and I'm like, try and swing a lawful good character whose idea of is to douse the flames of hope from their enemies.
Douse the flame of hope from evildoers.
Yeah. Again, it's a bit of a stretch
Do
though.
you know what?
I
You're
wish there was
Judge
something
Dredd.
like
That's who you are. You're Judge Dredd if you're a conquest paladin, really.
yeah, pretty much. But I would like like for example, in place of that, and a good alignment option for that kind of thing is instead of douse the flames of hope, it's I don't know.
Crush the seeds of evil where they grow.
Yeah, sort of, or like,
See,
or
it can't be
terrorize
like
evil back to whence it came.
yeah,
you
it
know?
can't be a soft touch because it's conquest.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe terrorize evil back to whence it came. So you're not just killing a devil, you're banishing it back to its realm and it's never to return again. And like that could be a thing. You could be conquesting over evil beings. I wish there was more flexibility that way.
That's just that sounds very similar to Oath of the Watchers.
Actually, yeah. Oath of the Watchers is more or less that.
I kind of like them because like I just remember the Vengeance ones so well because I always tried to keep them in mind when I was playing to kind of inform roleplay. But like they're pretty solid. Like one of them, I can only really remember two big ones right now. But it was fight the bigger evil, Oh, sorry, it was like fight the bigger evil. So like if you're in a town and like the mayor of the town is a bad guy and he's serving like a demon lord, you don't go and kill the mayor first. You go and kill the demon.
Yeah.
And then the second one I think was shit, I just lost it again. It was fight the bigger evil. The last one was
like enact vengeance for those who cannot do it themselves was one of them.
Yeah, it was like fight the bigger evil. I think that might have been the second one, and then the third one was like if you fail, make restitution.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh, that's a good one. Like if you fail, make restitution. Ooh, I like that a lot. Oh no, I think it's like it was something along the lines of like if someone is harmed through your own inaction or something like that, or if you fail to prevent something from happening, it's up to you to make restitution to it.
Yeah, like inaction is just as bad as negative action. Yeah. Martin, I have one final hot take for you here before we wrap up.
Go on.
And it's quite a nice one.
Okay.
We're going to end on today. We're going to end on a positive note. Hot takes are meaningless because people should just change the game to suit their own needs.
Fucking absolutely.
Yes. Thank you very much, Fun Gin Mentor.
You are indeed a fun gym mentor with that attitude. Yeah. Kudos.
No, dead on. At the end of the day, guys, all these hot takes, as fun as
fun
it is to talk about,
not fun gym. Ah, yes.
Oh no, fun gym. Yeah, he's a dungeon, but it's fun. Like not Tomb of Annihilation.
Ooh, there's a hot take.
But yeah, at the end, not that it's not fun, but it's a grueling dungeon crawl. At the end of the day, guys, hot takes for as much as they're fun to talk about and argue about and everything. Play the game how you like.
Yeah. These are only our opinions.
We're all here to have fun. We're all here to have a good time. No one's got to get angry about it. No one's got to get worked up. You play your way, I play my way. Maybe we play together sometime. It all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, just like, I suppose like if you have any like fun D&D or D&D hot takes, please do send them on to us at the Micflayers podcast.
I would love to hear everyone.
I actually would love to come back to this and do a bunch of like reviewing other people's hot takes. I might do that. I might put out an old tweet on the Micflayers account asking for your D&D hot takes, and maybe we can come back to this another day.
Yes, please. So Martin.
Yes, Connor.
That's all the time we have for today.
Ooh, it's been a good one. I actually really enjoy talking about D&D hot takes.
Good variety in this one. Nice variety in this episode.
And next time maybe there just won't be things like I guess this is a hot take when I'm doing my notes.
So, if you have any questions you'd like to ask us, stories you'd like to share, or topics you would like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayersPod on Twitter. You can see it there in the lower screen. You can also follow our podcast on both YouTube and Spotify.
Indeed.
Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
Mostly I can be found here on the Micflayers podcast, Friday evenings. You can also find me on, I went for my Twitch first there, weirdly, but you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is in the bottom right hand corner there. Our Micflayers Twitter account also in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. I've actually started streaming a little more again. I'm currently jumping into the Irish expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I just arrived in Dublin.
I've heard the accents are diabolical.
Do you know, to be fair to the game, I've seen one or two that are pretty solid, but there was one I was like, this lad's from Rathfarnham, what's going on here? Like, you know. And there was another, like, there's one of the main NPCs, and like I can clearly tell you're an English person doing an Irish accent that's supposed to be tinted with Viking. I'm just like, ugh, like he calls him Da, and I'm just like, no, but yeah, I'm doing a bit of that. Also, a bit of streaming for the PS5, so that's been a lot of fun. But those are the main places you can find me on the internet. What about yourself, Connor?
You can find me on Twitter at 0.Connor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And as always, you can find me here on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time on YouTube and Spotify. So guys, thank you very much for watching. It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
And we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.